everybody. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and it's time to live stream. It's time for the Q and the A, and it's time for the folks who live in the United States to finally get their due and finally get a live stream that is actually at a good time for them. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. How's that audio sound now? Oh, it's sounding pretty good. No echo? Alex got it right today? Alex? Should we keep him? Alex is my sound engineer, and whenever there's a mistake in the live stream, like an audio echo or glitch or something, he's over there in the sound booth. I'm going to be answering your questions. I'm going to be answering your questions in the chat. I'm going to be answering your questions here in the chat from the YouTube. Yes, I will be. And if you feel like helping me out a little bit, I will be answering your questions in the super chat, which you can access by clicking this little $ or whatever it is. I think it shows your local currency, or maybe it's a $. You can click it and you can send a couple bucks, and I do make sure to get those super chat questions. And of course, I'm also monitoring. Hello, Golden Air. I am monitoring the Discord. This is my Discord for my patrons. Once upon a time, someone said, hey, you should make a Discord. It's good. People like it. And so I did. And now I answer questions there, too, just like I answer them pretty much everywhere else. So that's what we're doing tonight. To answer the question of what I'm drinking, which you all I know are so interested in, tonight it's Blue Moon Belgian White. Where are you guys at? I'm going to throw a question out at you. Where are you on wheat beers? Those of you who are old enough to drink, of course. Because, this is a family-friendly event. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, but that doesn't mean it's, it's after hours. And yeah, I have an adult beverage, but I'm an adult. It's okay. Don't worry. We're all going to keep our shirts on. Parents, your kids can watch this. There will not be any swearing. There will not be any nudity. Everything's going to be just fine. Wheat beers, yes or no? Orange, is that actually Ladrib? Is Ladrib actually in my live stream? What? What is he doing here? Ladrib, kid, shouldn't you be working on ruining Rotor Riot? I'm sorry, couldn't resist. When I was in Orlando for Quad Camp about a month ago, I stayed at Drib's place. It's actually his partner's aunt's place or something, but I stayed at the place where he was staying. And I try to be a good host. I try and, contribute. And the only beer he had in the fridge was Corona. So I was like, okay, I guess that's what he drinks. Because wheat beers are very divisive. You either like them or you don't. So, Now I am going to be answering some questions. I am, but I'm going to start this. I'm going to start this with a question of my own, which is, so I was looking at the comments from the latest video posted over on Rotor Riot's channel. I always check out, especially the episodes I'm in. And we did a destroying a battery, ways to discharge a battery or destroy a LiPo battery, which I was sure was going to be a hit because it was like requested by the community. And one of the things that some people complain about is that Rotor Riot doesn't listen to the community enough. So we said, what episode are we going to make? We specifically went to that list of episodes that the community requested, and we picked this one. And we made it. And of course, you can't make everyone happy on the internet. That's the thing that you just have to learn, is you'll never make everyone happy. But that doesn't stop me from obsessing about the one guy who complains. And the complaint that he had was, say it with me, sing it with me, Rotor Riot was better back in the day. And I thought to myself, was it? Because we can all think of just barn burner episodes like Guns versus Drones. We all, like the Dug a Dive, But I just want to, let's take a little walk down memory lane here, because I'm going to go here to the videos and I'm going to say sort by date added oldest, and we can look. I just want to remind you guys. And I got a point. I'm going somewhere with this, so stay with me. Let's see here. Guns versus Drones. 565,000 views. Hell yes. Yeah. Let's see. What else? So how about that scathing interview that we did with Chase Ashton? Basically the fourth video we ever did was a sit-down interview with Chase Ashton with horrible audio because there was like a truck in the background the whole time. And how about the classic pinching versus thumbs? Which is better? But my favorite of them all, the one that really made it hit home for me was, hold on. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this classic, the Eachine 250 Racer RTF. Yep, there's Final Glide testing out the Eachine 250 Racer RTF. And I thought to myself, if Rotor Riot did an episode today about the Eachine Racer, can you imagine? Can you imagine? So here's my point. Here's where I'm going. Rotor Riot has always had absolute rockstar episodes that blow everybody's mind. And Rotor Riot has always had educational videos that don't excite you in the same way. Like the video about props was one of the first videos. Great information about picking a prop. So there's educational videos, there's travel logs, and there's some episodes that are frankly a little bit more exciting than others. That's always been true. It's true today. Let's hang on. Sort by date added, newest. I'm just doing this live, so like 10 ways to destroy your LiPo batteries. I feel like that's a pretty solid one. Let's see. I was in this one. I thought that was it. Parts Unflown Mexico, an amazing like 25-minute travel log from Tommy and Kevin. Legal long range, chasing a freaking whatever the name for that vehicle is through the desert. Drones versus Windows. Yeah, and then there's modding the Eachine Wizard X220, which, so you got some, that's my point. Was Rotor Riot better back in the day? You see everything through rose-tinted glasses. I definitely appreciate the reasons why people miss the original cast. The original cast, they certainly have a quality that is exceptional. Not to take anything away from me and the other people who are on the show today, but anyway. Now I'm done indulging myself. Frank Barajas says, we get older so things seem better, but that may only be because we remember what we liked the most more fondly and forget what we didn't. I fully agree with you, Frank. I fully agree with you. And when you first start out, no one has any expectations. So you have an amazing episode. People are like, wow, that was cool. You have a weak episode, and people are like, okay, let's see what else they do. But when people only remember the amazing episodes, every week episode is like, going downhill, going downhill. So, alrighty. Enough about that. Enough indulging myself. Let me indulge you by looking at the chat. And let's see. I wish I could find Drib again in the chat. I'd make him a moderator or something. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Why does Drib wear eyeliner? Probably because he wants to. Guyliner is sexy as hell. Okay. This is not the kind of questions I was hoping I would get. Crushstar asks, what's your opinion about Rotor Riot partly bought by Race Day Quads and the whole development with them? Now, I don't want to turn this whole episode into me talking about Rotor Riot. I will want to take some technical questions and help some people answer their problems. I will talk about that for 1 second, though. I think it's fantastic. The Rotor Riot store, Rotor Riot has always wanted the store to be absolutely world-class. Rotor Riot has high standards for itself, for its pilots, and for the services and things that we provide to customers, viewers, however you want to put it. And the store was, for all the ways in which the store was good, and lots of people had good experiences with the store, it was not living up to those expectations in too many ways. And the question then was, do we figure out how to fix this and make it better? Or do we just ask someone else to fix it for us? And for a long time, the answer was, no, we can do this. We can make it better. And eventually, they came to a point where we said, okay, well, we can't anymore. And as Chad Capper said in an interview, the gist of it is that we just finally ran out of money. So I think it's fantastic. Race Day Quads has amazing customer service, is great at stocking items. And, the thing is, in some ways, the situation with Race Day Quads is not that different than the situation was with Lauren, in that someone else is running the store. But the difference is that the person who's running the store now has a proven history of doing an amazing job at it. And so that leaves Rotor Riot to focus on the things that Rotor Riot does best. And with all due respect, running a store was never one of them. I do want to give total credit to Jeff Orta Vortex, who came on in, I don't remember exactly when he came on, but he, more than any single person, is responsible for just turning that ship and working his ass off to try and make the store as good as it could be. It turned out, I think, that there was just too much working against him for him to be able to succeed at that. But he was brought on in the last year and a half or so to try to help turn the store around. And I wouldn't want the fact that the store ended up not turning around on his watch to reflect badly on him. He did so much. And it's just a testament to the magnitude of the work that had to be done, that the amount of work he put into it wasn't enough. So, okay. Now, come on. Give me a technical question. Give me a technical question, not about Rotor Riot. UAV Tech. Rotor Riot needs to start giving out free battery straps. Do they not give out free? Come on. They've got to be giving out free battery straps. Stumpy UAV Tech. I'm marking you as a moderator, buddy. I don't know what that actually means for you, but I like to, I want to acknowledge your presence in the chat. What do you consider the ideal weight for a freestyle quad, 4S and 6S? So the ideal weight for a freestyle quad, I don't think it really changes between 4S and 6S, because when you're running 6S, you're running lower kV motors. So at the end of the day, the RPM at the prop is about the same. So the thrust is about the same. It's just a difference of sag and flight time and a little bit of torque. The ideal weight for a freestyle quad, I think I could see it being down maybe as low as 500 or 550 grams. That would be a very, very lightweight freestyle quad. And I think a typical freestyle quad with a GoPro is closer to 600 grams, maybe 650 grams is starting to get a little bit on the heavy side. So that's what I would say weights for a freestyle quad. Too light, and they don't sort of fling and carry their weight. I do know that there are racers out there who freestyle their race quads, and they're ultra light, and they do a great job, but that's just not my personal preference. Joe Gray wants to know, if all you own is a starter set of goggles, do you think one should wait until the next generation of goggles comes out, or will they end up waiting forever? Joe Gray, I think that you will end up waiting forever. There's always something new around the corner, potentially. Right now, I'm not aware of any big developments in the goggle market that are coming. My pick right now for like a budget goggle, if $300, if you're looking for like a Fat Shark style goggle, not like a box style goggle, I think the EV200D is my go-to. It's a tough call between the EV200D and the Omway Commander V1. The EV200D has better specs, it has larger screens, higher resolution, and it has pretty good looking image. It has a great DVR, and it has quadversity, so you get 4 antennas instead of 2 in your diversity. But the Omway Commander V1 has been around for so long, it's a pretty tried and true, and it's a little smaller and a little lighter. But I think overall, for me, the EV200D would be my choice in the $300-ish range. And I would go for that today. I wouldn't wait for some new thing to come out. Aaron Pratt wants to know, and by the way, I do see that I got some super chats coming in, and I will get to them in just a second, but I always like to start by reading a bunch of questions from the regular chat just to show everybody that I'm not only paying attention to the people who pay me. Aaron Pratt wants to know, questions for you, Jay. How would you deal with the gyro yaw twitches in iNav? Those yaw twitches are not showing in Betaflight. Yaw twitches are the #1 way, I think, that, well, maybe not the #1, but they're one of the first ways that excess noise, excess vibration getting into the gyro shows up. And I don't know why they happen first on the yaw axis, but they do. So if it's happening on iNav only but not Betaflight, it says to me that there's something different in the iNav filtering than the Betaflight filtering that's letting those yaw twitches come through. And so it stands to reason that iNav's filtering is very different than Betaflight's. iNav is always a little bit behind Betaflight in terms of it's never quite, they're focusing on different things. So if I had that, I would probably try lowering the gyro low pass filter in iNav. Let's see if I can plug in a quad. And I don't have an iNav quad, but I'm hoping it's not super different. maybe it is. If we look right here, we can see in the PID tuning tab, if we look at the filter settings, we've got the gyro low pass 1 cutoff. I would want to look at what that value was and maybe think about lowering it and hope that that helped. Certainly soft mount the flight controller if you can. Do those things to reduce the vibration that's getting in there. Let's take a look at the super chats. Man, definitely got to take care of the people who are throwing money at my face. Thank you so much. Tyler Madison, thank you for $5. Dope, take my money. Okay. Zipperlips FPV, $10. Are there any cons to a lightweight quad? Yes, I think there are. A super lightweight quad is, well, first of all, it's more affected by the wind. So it's going to be more likely to be blown off course. Although the lightweight quads are also usually, maybe they have a lower profile, so they're not blown as much by the wind in that sense. But the big thing for freestyle is that a lightweight quad is not going to carry its momentum through the air resistance. So in freestyle, it's very common to do a punch and then cut the throttle and fling over a tree. And with a very lightweight quad, the minute you back off the throttle, it just stops moving and falls straight down. So a freestyle pilot would have to really get used to that. In general, the lighter quads are better because you get longer flight times, you get more thrust, you get more acceleration, and those are all good things. Up to the point where the lightweight causes durability to suffer. I mean, as quads get lighter, they tend to get less durable. Is that true? That's not 100% true. There's actually a sweet spot where as a quad is heavier, it hits the ground harder because it has more mass, and a heavier quad tends to be bigger, and so it breaks easier. As quads got smaller and went down from 9-inch props to 5-inch mini quads, they got way more durable. But then as it continues to get lighter, if it doesn't also get smaller, I guess that's the key. If a quad gets lighter but it doesn't get smaller, it will tend to become more fragile. So there's really a sweet spot there. Samuel Rivera, sorry, Samuel, gives $5. Thank you, Samuel. It says, next time you're in Florida, convince Drew to head to Derby Park in Sanford Lake Mary, quad drag racing. Drew, you listening? Derby Park in Sanford Lake Mary, quad drag racing. Pay attention, Drew. If Drew's in the chat, I can't possibly keep up. There's so much chat. How do you wire the RXSR to your flight controller V2? Omar Sanguinis. Yeah, Omar, the full instructions for wiring up the flight controller are in the manual, which you can download from the Race Day Quads product page. But the short version is on the RXSR, green wire S-bus out to the S pad, which is UART 1. I have to think for a minute. Yellow wire SmartPort telemetry to the T pad, which is UART 3. Red and black to 5 volts and ground. That's the gist of it. Ray B. Simon gives $2. You're awesome. Make a Joshua Bardwell t-shirt. Thank you. I did. It's in Quadbox. It was in Quadbox. FTB FPV for $5. I will notice you, senpai. All right. Let me check now. I'm going to jump over and check on my Discord server and see what's going on over there. Any questions there? Thoughts on the Toothpick? Everybody wants to know what I think about the Kebab's Toothpick build. I'm worried that the live stream is just going to be me talking about the Toothpick. But in case you're not... Get it? Because he's a dentist, so he called it the Toothpick. This is Kebab's build, the Toothpick. And it's... Let me see if I can find it. There, nice frame grab of it. 39 to 100 to 70 grams, which for perspective, that is approximately about this guy here. This, oh, you can't see my camera. The Eachine trash can is about 45, 50 grams, I think, if my memory's correct. Maybe 41 grams. So it is roughly the weight of a trash can, but it has way more powerful motors and bigger props. And Kebab just acros the heck out of this thing. Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? Is the bottom line. What's not to like? It's super interesting. I haven't built one, and micros are not where my first love is, so I don't know if I will go out of my way to build one. But I think you can actually take the electronics from existing quads and put them on this Toothpick frame. The big difference to me, though, is that you end up with open props, and that means you can't really fly it indoors. So Yeah, Ed Ricker says, I saw a toothpick in flight yesterday seemed to fly like a 5-inch. I don't know if I quite believe that. The lightweight is just impossible to overcome. But I do remember the first time I flew the 2-inch Baby Hawk. I was really impressed with how close to a 5-inch it felt. It's really, if all you're doing is straightforward flight, then actually you can kind of feel like, oh yeah, this kind of feels like a 5-inch. As soon as you start doing punches and drops, then suddenly the physics are really different. But let's see. What do you say to these new ESCs? These are the Airbot Furling ESCs. You know, here's what I say. Airbot has a good history of making solid gear. The one exception to that is that the first generation of a lot of Airbot gear sometimes has an issue. Airbot makes OEM products for a lot of people. A lot of the flight controllers and ESCs, more than you think probably, are made by Airbot underneath. And at that point, it's up to the company who's using Airbot to test the gear, and that stuff is as good as the company is. But for example, Airbot currently makes my flight controller, and it's up to me and up to Race Day Quads to test the prototypes and make sure there's no mistakes. In the past, when Airbot has put out their own flight controllers, sometimes, and like I'm thinking of the, what's that, the ESC and flight controller they made that had some kind of a bug. Occasionally it has bugs. So sometimes I think they rush stuff to market. I'm not sure I would jump on the very first generation of any brand new Airbot product. I mean, I just got to be honest. But in general, they make solid stuff, and it looks like an interesting ESC. 50 amp burst, 45 amp continuous. Yeah, there you go. With the F3. Now, I will say this about the F3 ESCs. ESCs are coming out right now with F3 processors on them. There is absolutely no reason today to do that. The only reason you might do that is if you think that tomorrow there's going to come out a version of BLHeli that only runs on the F3. But for now, there is literally no benefit to having an F3 ESC, except for the fact that usually they also are putting really high quality FETs, pardon me, because these are premium ESCs. So it's kind of like you buy the 93 octane gas at the gas station because it also has the detergent in it. Right, the F3 processor doesn't matter, not today, and no indication of anything coming tomorrow anytime soon. But the FETs on them are often really nice. It's pretty pricey though. It's $23. That's practically KISS ESC territory. Yikes. Okay. Let's see here. Crossfire question: is setting weight equals 150, offset equals 150 to get 0 to 300 on the X9D's LQ channel the correct way to get accurate LQ callouts on the radio? Giunte, I'm not sure about that because I don't do LQ via the Tyrannus's telemetry sensor. I do LQ via the receiver output map, and I just set the receiver to output LQ on a channel. So I never set weight or offset in the Tyrannus when I set up LQ. That's the answer to that. I think that recent Crossfire firmwares have adjusted LQ to go from 0 to 100. I'll tell you what, though. The bottom line is I set the receiver to output LQ on channel 8. Done. I just assume that Crossfire is taking care of it from there. Deshaun O'Mac says Oscar Leon has an LQ article. That's true, but Deshaun O'Mac, you're going to want to make sure that it's up to date because LQ changed. The way they calculate and the way they output LQ did change in one of the firmware updates. So make sure that what you're reading is actually consistent with the firmware that you're using. Grawlins asks about strain relief on an XT60 coming off a flight controller. I would always strain relieve it. Never leave it bare because when the battery ejects, it'll pull on it, it'll rip the stuff off and break it. So you can tie it to the top plate. I usually, on my builds, I tie it to the side of the metal front. I bring the XT60 out the front of the flight controller. So I rotate the flight controller so it comes out the front. And then I tie the battery lead with a zip tie to the metal cage. That's how I usually do it. Let's see here. How would I mount a RunCam split or a Foxeer mix to a Chameleon TI if I had a 4-in-1 ESC? That I wouldn't. The Chameleon TI is good for 2 boards. I once saw somebody get 2 boards on top of each other in a smooth operator. So I mean, it could be done, but in general, I just wouldn't even try to put 3 boards on top of each other. So if you really want to put a Runcam split or a FoxEar mix in your Chameleon TI, I would use ESCs in the arms. That's the bottom line. All right, let's go back to the chat and see. Jeremy Sarge, what would cause a Flight 1 OSD running Flight 1 to be flaky and leave letters on the screen and just disappear at times? I don't know about that. I mean, if it were Betaflight, I would reflash the font. I would. It sounds like you have a flaky ESC flight controller. Is the bottom line. Let's see. Would you, let's see here. Which ground port on the Acon AK32 should I omit if I want to wire it to the iFlight Sussex F7FC? Let me just check that. This is the Acon AK32 35 amp. You say which ground? And I'm a little bit suspicious about that because which ground would you omit? Are there 2 ground wires coming out of the 4-in-1? Hang on. Yeah, I think there are. So I don't think I would omit either of them. It looks to me like this ESC has 2 grounds, minus, minus, and plus, plus. And the reason for that is probably just to have a little bit more current carrying capacity. So you could, I think you'd probably be safe to leave either of those out because I just don't think your flight controller is pulling that much current. But if you wanted to use both of them, you could tie them together. If you're soldering the ESC to the flight controller instead of using a plug, you could certainly just tie them together. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it really matters, though. I think they're completely interchangeable. Let's see here. How does Discord... Yeah, Discord does work on iPhone, I would think. How much flight time do I put in a week? How many packs? Lewis Hayes, Greenwood, a lot fewer than you might think. I spend all my time making videos and answering questions on the internet and not so much flying as you might expect. Yeah, just for perspective. Let's make sure there's nothing embarrassing on my screen. Hold on. Yeah, just for perspective, you know, this is my life. Just questions from people asking questions. Oh, we're all the way back to Sunday though. That's pretty good. Oh, here's this morning. Here's 12 a.m. this morning. So how did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Anyway, yeah, you get the gist of it. That's why I don't spend a lot of time flying. So, fewer than you think. For a 7-inch or 8-inch quad, would you run 6S or 4S? Well, I will say that I flew the 6S builds, the 6S 7-inch builds from the guys in Chattanooga, and I really thought they were fantastic. The larger props are going to struggle a little bit more on the lower voltage. I mean, obviously with KV, anything can sort of even out, but I felt like the higher voltage really made a big difference, and I really liked it. So I would go 6S, like 1900 to 1700 kV. How to tell the difference, Tantrum FPV, between Vibes and Jello? How do you tell the difference between Vibes and Jello? That's a very good question. And it matters because when you reach out to somebody like tech support or Get FPV or me, and you say I'm having Jello, I'm thinking of a very specific thing. So Jello is a kind of waviness in the image caused by a relatively high frequency vibration, whereas vibrations is a lower frequency where you can actually see an individual back and forth. I guess it kind of has to do with whether the frequency is higher or lower than the refresh frequency of the screen. You know, if it's lower than the refresh frequency of the screen, you're going to see it go up and down. If it's higher, it's going to appear kind of as a waviness on the screen. And so the waviness would be jello, vibes would be anything slower. Let's see. Crush Star, can you tell us about currently used motor protocols and what is best? I mean, to tell you the truth, I run DShot 600 on a lot of my builds. DShot 1200 is faster, but also more subject to noise, and especially if you're not running 32 kilohertz, I'm not sure that there's as strong a benefit for DShot 1200. So definitely DShot, but I run DShot 1200 or 600. Future FPV wants to know about Quad Camp. Since Stingy's role in Rotor Riot was to run Quad Camp and he's doing his own thing now, is Quad Camp going away? I know that Rotor Riot, and certainly I, intend to keep putting on Quad Camps. I think there's a little bit of a sort of a chicken and the egg question there. Did Quad Camp go away because Stingy left, or did Stingy leave because Quad Camp was not as successful as he expected it to be? So I know that everybody who is at Rotor Riot believes in Quad Camp and wants to keep putting them on. We just need to find a way to do that where it makes financial sense. And the way we were doing it was not making financial sense. And we've had to stop. So we've had, I can't remember if Hesperia was in this year or December. I can't remember if it was January or December. I think it was January. So I think we've had 2 this year, one in Hesperia, California over at X-Hover, one in Orlando, Florida at Race Day Quads. I know we intend to do more. We just need to find the right locations and the right partners to do them with where it will make financial sense. FPV Dreams wants to know, would multi-shot have less noise? I'll tell you, FPV Dreams, I did a troubleshooting session with the Helio RC guys, and when they had me switch from D-shot to multi-shot, and as you probably know, maybe you don't know, they really believe in multi-shot as being superior to D-shot because it's lower frequency and less noise, even though it's an analog protocol. When they had me switch from D-shot to multi-shot, my camera noise got way cleaner. And I was like, wow, there is a lot less noise with multi-shot than with D-shot, at least on this one build. So yeah, I think multi-shot would have less noise, although for me, I'm not giving up turtle mode. I'm not giving up. You show me a way that I can do turtle mode and ESC beeper, but mostly turtle mode with multi-shot, and I'll think about it. Until then, no. Bonoichi Mossada. I don't know what a Mossada is. Hold on, let's Google Translate that. Good night. Moted. Moted? No, it's not moted. I hope Mossada's not a bad word. Future FPV, yeah, it was great to meet you as well, although I'm not 100% sure I know which person is behind that profile, but it is just awesome to meet people at Quad Camp and interact with you guys in real time instead of over the internet. Pete Labarak wants to know if we will see an auto PID tuning beta flight soon. No, I don't think so. What I do think we will see is a beta flight with such effective PID controller that PID tuning is essentially obsolete. And that's the direction we've been going for 2 or 3 years. And I think that's the direction we'll keep going. Auto PID tuning, it just never worked very well on quadcopters. It just never has. Let me just get a couple of these super chats. Jesse R wants to know, if the flight controller is not mounted in the center, does it feel any different? The answer to that, dang it, I gotta start clipping some of these. I talked for like 17 minutes about that in one of my previous live streams. So the short version is that having the flight controller mounted in the center does not have any effect on the gyro. It does have a small effect on the accelerometer. However, if you're not flying in auto level mode, then you will never notice. So it doesn't affect the gyro at all, though, because the quadcopter's frame is effectively rigid, and that means that all parts of the frame rotate at the same angular rate. So it means that wherever you are on the frame, the gyro reads the same value. The exception to that would be like high frequency vibrations. the frame is going to have resonance at certain areas. For example, if you think about the old QAV250 frame with the battery plate hanging way out the back, if you were to mount the quadcopter back on the end of that battery plate, it would vibrate badly because that unsupported plate is going to have crazy resonance. So placing the flight controller in an area where there is a lot of resonance will cause problems. But as far as the actual sort of low frequency outputs from the gyro, doesn't matter where you mount it on the frame. So a frame like the Catalyst MachineWorks Smooth Operator, no difference that the flight controller is mounted on the back of the stack. Calvin Erickson, thank you for 10 bucks. Hey dude, to you as well. How far do you think I can go? Taplow gives €5 and asks, how far do you think I can go with the Crossfire micro module on a fixed wing? Crossfire micro module goes up to 250 milliwatts, and I think you can go, you could theoretically go really freaking far. You know, I mean, you hear stories about people going 10, 20, I mean, I would say 10 kilometers. I mean, if your antenna setup is good. If you have a crap antenna setup, you might only get a couple kilometers off of 250 milliwatts. But if you're serious about long range, you know, set your antenna up correctly. 250 milliwatts is enough for easily tens of kilometers, especially if you start putting a directional antenna on your module. But even with an Omni antenna, easily up to like 10 kilometers, I think, and probably more. Zipper Lips FPV, thank you for $10 and asks, what about that new FreeSky protocol? Yeah, what about that new FreeSky protocol? I also talked about this a little bit at the end of the last live stream. So I don't want to go for the, because I mean, I assume like you guys are all just coming back and rewatching, but there's a new protocol, the new Access protocol coming from FreeSky. They've announced it. As far as I know, no one actually has the technology in hand, but it has several big improvements. Lower latency, so clearly they're targeting Crossfire. I'm assuming they're targeting Crossfire with lower latency. 24 channels. Wireless binding, so you don't need to access the receiver for binding. You can just bind wirelessly. Over-the-air firmware updates. One of the biggest things that Crossfire has is the over-the-air firmware updates. So you don't no longer need to be hooking your receiver up to your computer or your transmitter in order to bind it. Just lots of amazing features. And one of the coolest things is that they've said that you will actually be able to update previous transmitters to this new protocol, which, I mean, I'm taking that with a big grain of salt because that's the kind of thing you would say, but then years later it turns out you never did it. So I'm a little skeptical of that, but it's super cool if it could happen. And I've said before, and this ties into another questions people have asked in the chat, which is FreeSky R9 versus Crossfire. And I've said that even if you don't need the additional range of a long-range protocol, the usability improvements of Crossfire, like the ability to do firmware updates over the air, so you can update firmware easily without taking the receiver out of the quad. Those usability improvements are so huge that it might be worth it for someone to buy Crossfire even if they didn't need the long range. I mean, the long range could just be a bonus, but this is definitely going to help close that gap for people who are okay with the 2.4 gigahertz range and penetration, but they want those additional convenience features. This FreeSky Access protocol looks really promising. However, let's be real. It's going to have a bug. I mean, FreeSky, I love you. It's going to have a bug. It's going to, like, who knows? It's not going to work right. Or it's going to work right, and then they're going to release a firmware update and it's going to break it, etc. So there you go. Yeah, Stephen Matthews, I would expect over-the-air updates to also come to R9. If they're putting it in the 2.4 gigahertz receivers, certainly they'll also put it in the 900 megahertz ones. Let's see here. Logan in the Discord. Let's go over to the Discord for a minute. Logan in the Discord asks, how do I get the voltage to play out loud during the flight now that I'm using Crossfire instead of the RXSR? Logan, the answer is the exact same way. You're just going to pick a different telemetry sensor. Instead of the VFAS sensor, you're going to be looking at the, hang on, I'll actually tell you the name. Let me bring up my Crossfire model. And I'm going to go to the telemetry screen. I just have to look for the name of the variable. And the telemetry sensor you care about is named RXBT. It's RXBT, and that's going to be your basically your battery voltage. So just read out RXBT instead of, now you are going to need to set up a logical switch or something, and I have a video about how to make your Tyrannus call out low voltage. I have a video about how to make your Tyrannus read out low voltage. Here it is. I will paste that link for you right in the Discord. And if anybody's following along, I'll paste it in the chat as well. And it's the exact same method that you see there, except you pick the RXBT sensor instead of the VFast sensor. Let's see. Wow. Okay, I've gotten really behind on the Discord. Let me see if I can catch up on the Discord. Let's see here. Started building my... I got that one. Okay. How can you mount? Got that one. Okay. How thick must a cable be if the VTX and camera are running over the flight controller? Yeah, so how thick of a cable do you need? Oh, you're not... Hello, there you are. How thick of a cable do you need if the VTX and camera are running to the flight controller? I think you're asking how big of a cable do you need to carry the current. I would expect the VTX and the camera to easily be under 1 amp, so even a little cable like a 26 gauge or something should be fine. Let's see. Yep. C-Press wants to know, what can I do with a new micro that oscillates on stock Betaflight PIDs? The first thing I would do if I had an oscillating quad is turn down the P gains. That's what I would do. Turn them down until it stops oscillating. If you have to turn them down until it feels really slushy, then maybe something is broken about it. But maybe the default PIDs are just not working for you. Yep. That guy, 10 kilometers on 5 gigahertz with 200 milliwatts. I believe that guy. That guy is talking about somebody doing 10 kilometers on 5 gigahertz FPV with 200 milliwatts. I think that's possible. You just have to have a really good antenna setup. Let's see here. JB, I've got a NIPA FPV. I've got a clean reverb and I'm having a little trouble tuning it. Can you tell me a bit about lowering filters? I'm running a SpeedyB AIO with an MPU 6000. Do I not need as strong a filtering? Well, yeah, a NIPA FPV, this question ties into what some people have asked about me tuning my freestyle build. Let's see if I can find my own freaking video. So I've got a video right here where I made my perfect freestyle quadcopter, just basically a no-holds-barred build. And people asked, well, how did you tune it? And the truth is that all I did in the tuning was raise the filters. I raised up the filters. I left the PIDs on default. And I followed the steps in my black box, in my PID tuning guide, where I said no black box. You know, there's this impression that in order to tune, the thing is, if you have a solid build, you practically don't need to mess with the PIDs very much at all. And the whole point of that build was to make just the most solid hardware I could possibly come up with. So I raised the cutoffs, the filter cutoffs. If we look in Betaflight, you can see here I am in the filter settings, and in general, so the default here for Betaflight, this is 400. Well, this is a nightly build of 400, so I'm not actually sure if yours are going to be the same, but the default here is 100. If you're running 8K, 8K, so if you're not running 32K, the first thing you do is you turn off the stage 2 filters. Just turn them off. You don't need them. The only reason we added those was if you're running 32K. They are there by default, but you don't need them. So then what you do is you start raising the gyro low pass. And what I did is I just took it straight up to 150 hertz. That is a risky move, but I knew that the motors were smooth and the quad was tight, and I felt safe doing it. Also, to be honest with you, it was like 35 degrees out because it was the middle of winter, so I was like, hey, I got some extra protection if my motors get hot. But I just raised that gyro low pass 1. But doing that reduces the latency of the filters, and it improves prop wash handling significantly. As I also raised the D-term low pass, and I can't remember what I raised it to, but I raised the D-term low pass a little bit as well. I would just work those up. Turn off, if you're running 8K, 8K, turn off the stage 2, raise the gyro low pass, raise, and watch for hot motors. And then over in the PID settings, you know, I have some things I do, like I like to change the feed forward value. I like to raise feed forward. That's not absolutely mandatory. That's more about stick feel than it is handling, whereas changing the PIDs would affect handling. And I would only really tune the PIDs. At that point, if the quadcopter flies good, I'm just going to get on with my day and fly. So, is a dented capacitor dangerous? Blob87. It's not dangerous. If it pops, it's probably not going to do anything too dramatic, but it might pop. The thing is, it's not that big of a deal to replace it. Maybe you should replace it. Do I think, Alex Suarez wants to know, do I think I will switch to the Nirvana? That's a really tough one, Alex. The Nirvana is a pretty nice radio. It's very nicely built. The ergonomics of the switches, I think I don't love. And I'm not sure how I feel about committing to the touchscreen. I don't know if I'll switch to it. The biggest reason that I'm not sure I'll switch to it is that I don't like the fact that it has a FlySky radio inside it, and so many of the quads that I get are FreeSky, like the bind and flies, like the trash can, etc. So many of them are FreeSky radios, and having to take out a multi-protocol module every time, or take out my Crossfire module every time I want to do FreeSky would really bug me. So I don't know. Joe Gray says, I feel like the Jumper T16 is a better buy than the Nirvana. The Jumper T16, I showed off at the very beginning of my last live stream. The Jumper T16 is basically a straight rip of a Futaba radio. So I'm sure it doesn't have the build quality of a Futaba, just because how could it? But as far as the ergonomics go, it's like a straight rip of a Futaba radio. And yeah. So it runs OpenTX though. I have one for review. I haven't started testing it yet, but it looks pretty good. We'll have to see. I think I like the ergonomics of the Jumper better than I like the ergonomics of the Nirvana. I practically would take, this kills me to say it, I practically would take the Jumper over the Nirvana, because it runs OpenTX. It has the ergonomics that I like, the traditional ergonomics. As much as I think Nirvana is trying to do something exciting with the, or Underground FPV is trying to do something exciting with the Nirvana ergonomics, I'm just not sure that it 100% works for me. So, Explosive Fruits asks, is the diamond antenna worth it for Crossfire? I have the stock antenna. Is the switch to the diamond worth it? Explosive Fruits, if you're trying to switch to a different Crossfire antenna, I would switch to the tuned antenna, not the diamond. This is the tuned antenna. The tuned antenna has better coverage than the stock antenna. It's hand tuned to be exactly the right frequency. The advantage of the diamond antenna is that it has a flatter coverage pattern that pushes out further. Okay, so if you're doing long range stuff at relatively low altitude, the diamond might work better for you. But for a lot of the non-long range flying, I think the tuned antenna is better. The tuned antenna is also, it's just less sort of clunky hanging off the top of the radio. Like the diamond antenna is actually designed to be used in the vertical position, and it's just a little bit of a pain in the butt. I still really like the stock antenna. And the big reason I like the stock antenna has nothing to do with RF, but it has to do with the fact that with the stock antenna on, I can put this inside my bag, my backpack, and I don't have to take the antenna off. And that's really nice. Whereas with all the other antennas I do. But the stock antenna has a problem where the little solder joint inside here can sometimes break. And I think they've redesigned this antenna to fix this. So maybe it's fixed now. But the little solder joint inside here can break, especially if you like twist this, and it'll break and you won't know it's broken, and then you'll get terrible range and you won't know why. So be careful about that. Noobington, I'm not hating on Jumper. I felt like I was positive about the T16. I don't have any news about the new X-Lite Pro. No news about that. Low Tone 20 Hertz asks, whatever happened to soft mounting motors? It seemed like it was highly recommended, but every build video I've watched, nobody does it. Let me tell you the truth, Low Tone. Johnny FPV released a video about soft mounting motors. Can I even find that video? Oh my God, what if? I think he called it the secret to a perfect flying drone. And I can't tell if he's trolling this or if he's serious. I really sincerely can't. He said, all credits to Zach Thayer for the idea. And that could be legit, or that could also just be trolling Zach Thayer. But he released this video talking about soft mounting motors, and everybody got very excited about it. The thing is, Johnny's drones fly perfect anyway. I'm not sure that he soft mounts his motors. So there's my take on soft mounting is that soft mounting is a useful tool for fixing problems with excess vibration that can't be solved any other way. But in general, soft mounting is a pain in the butt unless you have custom 3D printed stuff to put under the motors or something. In general, if you're trying to do it yourself with like electrical tape, it's a pain in the butt to get right. And I'm not sure it makes a difference. I have seen cases where soft mounted motors plus soft mounted flight controller actually made the quad fly worse. So I don't do it. Except I would have it in my back pocket as an option if there was something like I was having vibration problems I couldn't fix any other way. What's Debugman's question? He asked all through the last stream and is still asking. Razor, let me see this question. Where's Debugman? Sorry guys, the questions come in so hot and fast. Let me try to find Debugman here. Can I just search for him? Debugman. Let's see. There he is. Debugman, I got your question right now. I have 4 of your Bardwell F4s and I love them. I don't love that I can't get the LED pad to work with Betaflight. Searched your manual and posted an RC group. No luck on any of the 4 FCs. I mean, there's I don't think there's anything special you need to do. I personally don't have a lot of experience setting up LEDs. So what I do is I search for this video whenever I need to remind myself how to set up LEDs. It's an old video from Project Blue Falcon from 2 years ago. Still helping us solve problems from beyond the grave. Thank you, Project Blue Falcon. And whenever I need to set up LEDs, I follow this video, Debugman. The LED strip pad on my flight controller certainly works. So if you're having trouble getting it set up, it's got to be something about the setup. But, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what that might be. Betaflight 4.0 newbie FPV, as far as I know, is still due out in April. Remember, the target date was the beginning of April, but I don't know if they're still targeting that exact date. The bottom line is that once they hit release candidate, they will release it when it's ready. And if they still have bugs that they're solving, then they're just going to hold it off and keep releasing release candidates. So I think that it could drop tomorrow if they decide that they have a solid candidate, or it could be another month if they find more bugs that need to be solved. LJFPV wants to know my thoughts about the Brain FPV Radix and using the spectrograph OSD to tune. LJ, I'm not sure how useful that live spectrograph is because it's a real-time spectrograph. When I look at black box, I'm usually looking at a spectrograph for a specific section of the flight or the flight as a whole. So the spectrograph is an interesting novelty, but I'm not sure if I could easily use it to tune my filters because the data is changing so fast. Certainly not looking at it in real time. If maybe we're looking at the DVR and seeing that spectrograph change, that's okay. But at that point, I might as well use black box. So I think the Radix spectrograph is there. You could probably come up with some situation where it was just the right tool to fix it. But in general, I think if you want to see spectrograph data, use black box. And thankfully, the Brain FPV Radix does have an SD card reader, so you could do black box. Jeffrey No Name wants to know about my opinion. I'm looking at a newbie drone Mockingbird edition or a Tiny Hawk. I own the BV1 and the BV2. It's a tough decision. Is the newbie drone Mockingbird edition a brushed? Because that really should make the decision for you. If you want a brushed micro, then the newbie drone Mockingbird is a fantastic choice with the B-Brain, etc. flight controller. Some people love that brushed quad, experience. If you want a brushless, then the Tiny Hawk with Mockingbird is a fantastic choice. Joseph Dawson is reminding me that the T16 has no Hall effect sensors. Dead. It's dead to me. No. I mean, Hall effect sensors are very, very nice. They make the gimbals last a lot Tiziano wants to know, why don't we fly 6S with throttle taming? Aren't they more power dense? I know they're not more power dense. In general, the power density of the lipos is the same. It's the same for all of them. I mean, some are slightly more and slightly less than others, but the basic chemistry is similar and the power density is the same. A 6S of a given weight has approximately the same watt hours as a 4S of the same weight. It just has higher voltage. It has higher voltage but fewer milliamp hours. But that higher voltage does have effects on the motors that can be beneficial. It's FPV says Jumper is a Futaba. Over in the Discord, It's FPV, are you saying it literally is made by Futaba? Surely not. You're saying they copied Futaba, right? Let's see. Teflon's telling me to turn off my lamps behind me. This is a set. This is a set, my friend. It has to be lit. Terminal LCPL, that's a fantastic question. In the Discord, Terminal LCPL asks, what's the lowest C rating on a battery you would suggest to fly starting out? I would say 75C for mini quads. Don't go down to those 45C batteries. They are not for quads. They are for planes and stuff. 45C will just make you sad, sad, sad. 75C at the least. But the thing is, guys, when you can get a 90 or 100C race day quads or CNHL or Xylo from Get FPV pack, there are decent budget packs in the $20 to $22 range for a 1300 or 1500 milliamp hour. So like let's do Get FPV today. I always go to like race day quads, and let's just do Get FPV. Let's just search for a Xylo 1300 5S, no 4S. Bing. $20. Okay, it's backward, but you see my point, right? $20, that's a solid pack for $20. It's 100C. It's going to be fine. So honestly, given that there are great budget options at the 100C level, I would almost just say 100C. But really, 75C is the least I feel like you're going to be remotely happy with. 100C if you can possibly afford it, which you should be able to. All right, catching up on the chat. The chat has gone way ahead of me. I'm going to just see if I can catch up on the chat. Jardude FPV, have you messed around with absolute control on Betaflight? I have not. Absolute control, my understanding is that absolute control on Betaflight 4.0 is a feature that is most useful when you're doing a lot of like yaw heavy moves like funnels. And it's largely intended for line of sight pilots, not so much for FPV pilots. So I don't turn on absolute control because it just doesn't seem like it applies to me. Let's see. Brand new 6-inch quad suffering from mid-throttle oscillations. Main Hiles. Yikes. Mid-throttle oscillations are the worst. And the bigger the props you get, the more likely you are to get them. Mid-throttle oscillations happen. Why do they happen only at mid-throttle? Right? Because it seems like as the throttle goes up, the motor spins faster, you should get more oscillations as it gets higher. But if you get only mid-throttle oscillations, what's happening is that you're getting a resonance. So there's this resonant frequency where the vibration is magnified, and then as you raise the throttle, you move. It's like if your tire's out of balance on your car, and you only get the thump 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 at a certain speed. Right? That's the resonance. So the first thing I recommend you do if you have mid-throttle oscillations on any, in fact, I just do this on all my quads, is go into BLHeli Suite. You have to be using BLHeli 32 and change the motor PWM frequency to 48 kilohertz. And that gets rid of the mid-throttle oscillations on a lot of quads. However, if that doesn't get rid of the mid-throttle oscillations on your quad, then take the PWM frequency down from 48 to the default of 24 in small increments of maybe like 4 or 5 megahertz. So take it from 48 down to 44, down to 40. You see, work your way down. And you may find a value of PWM frequency that sort of cancels out the resonant oscillations. So that's what I would do. A couple people are asking about the battery testing. So it has been a while since I released any battery tests. And the truth about that is that I had a guy who was doing the battery testing for me. Because I realized that I really need the battery testing to scale to a level beyond what I can do. Like I just don't have the time during the day to run as many tests as I want to be running. So I started working with a guy who was helping me. He was doing great, and I was just about to cut him loose, and he had a family medical situation come up. And that dragged on for a few months, to be honest, because, well, I don't want to talk too much about the details, but I didn't want to say, hey, as long as you're having a family medical problem, can I have my battery test equipment back? And he was like, yeah, it's cool. I can keep working on it. But at the same time, he was dealing with a lot of shit. And it just, so eventually we came to a point where I took the equipment back and said, hey, listen, no hard feelings. And I'm now working on two things. I've got a guy working on an updated website, which the information is no good if you can't get to it. So I don't want to release this information one video at a time, but then you can't actually compare the information to what happened before. So I have a web developer who is working on the website, an updated website, and I'm working on finding someone to do the testing. And the problem with the testing is that you basically have to spend all day doing it, but only 5 minutes every 2 hours. So it's like you get the batteries, you start the test, and then what? You got nothing to do until the test finishes. Then you put the batteries back in the temperature control box, and then you come back in 2 hours and run another test. So it's hard because I need someone who can do it sort of in their spare time. I can't afford to pay somebody full time because most of the time you'd be sitting around doing nothing. But so it's hard to find someone to do it. I'm actively working on that. I feel a big sense of responsibility to everybody who donated money to help me buy the machine to get the tests going. I just want to get them going in the right way. I don't want it to be one battery video every 2 weeks. Like, I want it to be a regular series of data put up onto a website that you can check. And it's sort of the situation now where until I can do it right, I'm kind of not going to do it at all. But I am actively working on trying to get it to work right. So that's the status of the battery testing. Yeah. It's the best thing, Swamp Dog. Swamp Dog in the Discord says, I'm going to my first Tiny Whoop race tomorrow night at a brew pub here in San Francisco. That's the best thing about Tiny Whoop racing is you can do it indoors at a brew pub. You can eat, you can drink beer, you can have a good time with your friends, and you can't do that with 5-inch quads. It's not responsible. Let's see. Simon Saucy wants to know how to adjust D-gain. Simon Saucy, here is how you adjust D-gain. Hey, we all had to learn the first time from somebody. What you're going to do is you're going to go in Betaflight. You're going to connect to your flight controller. Yeah, or not. I know why. I've plugged in my quadcopter to my phone charging USB port, not to my computer's USB port. Sorry about that. Hold on. Let's try this one more time. There we go. You're going to go to the PID tuning tab, Simon, and you're going to raise the D-gain. And what I suggest you do is raise D-gain on both pitch and roll, but leave yaw alone. There's actually no D-gain on yaw anyway. But just raise that maybe 5 at a time. So here it's at 25 and 27. What I might do is I might just take these both up to maybe 30 or 35. And then hit save when you're done, and then go fly. And what you want to do is you want to look for hot motors. Fly the quad a little bit aggressively, see if your motors are getting hot. And the question that always comes up is how hot is too hot? And the answer is if you pinch the motor, this is for like a 5-inch motor. If you pinch the motor and if you pinch the motor and you're like, ooh, that's a little hot, that's the edge. If you pinch the motor and you go, ooh, that's a little hot, that's too hot. Okay. If you're a blacksmith with big calluses on your fingers, you may need to calibrate that down. But that's generally in general, the motors shouldn't be really warm unless you're really thrashing them. So as you raise that D-gain, the prop wash will go away. The motors will tend to get warmer, and you just find the balance there. Let's see here. Can I fly a 150-gram 3-inch quad with prop guards around people? For me, Diego, a 150-gram 3-inch quad, probably running 3S or even 4S, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Even with prop guards. That's just, if you just smack that 150-gram quad into somebody's face, they're not going to like it. For me, the real limit on what I feel most comfortable flying around people is stuff like the Mobula 7 or the ESCs trash can, 75, 85 millimeters. Even something like the Beta FPV 75X The 85X is getting sort of on the other side of that line. But the Baby Hawk specifically, it has a hard plastic shell and a carbon plate. And so if you smack that into somebody's head, it's going to feel really bad. If you compare that to something like the Tiny or the Mobula with this softer, it's, I mean, like, I'm not volunteering. That doesn't feel great, but just that's the line for me. So let's see here. Are there any, Controller Man Dan wants to know, are there any noob FPV groups I can join? I just started FPV 2 weeks ago, near finished my build. Here's what I would do. Controller Man Dan and everybody else out there who is new to the hobby and is looking for friends, number one thing to do is go to this website, multigp.com. And Controller Man Dan, I wish you'd said what city you live in. But just find a multi-GP chapter near you if you can. So what you can do is you can search for chapters and view chapters on a map. And then just wherever you are, just look. So I am in Texas. Okay. Well, there's some in San Antonio, Austin. Oh, they're still dropping in. Abilene, Houston. Now, if you're in Texas, you may be a few hours. If you live in Lubbock, Texas, it may be a long way to get to Midland or wherever it is. But in general, like if we look at, we need a control scroll to zoom the map. If we look at most places, like here in the Atlanta area, there's several chapters. South Carolina. In most places, if you're willing to drive for maybe 1 or 2 hours, you could probably find a chapter near you and meet some folks who can help you out. And, you know, a couple hours is, for us in America, driving 1 or 2 hours to get to an event that's doable. It's mostly doable. What about Australia? Old Man FPV, don't challenge me, man. What about Australia? Are there any multi-GP chapters in Australia? Let's find out. Where is Australia on the map anyway? Where is Australia? I have to flip my monitor upside down if I want to see the chapters. Haha! Yes, in Australia. Why, there's one here in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. Adelaide. I feel like of all of those, Adelaide was the closest to an actual Australian accent. Perth. I can't say that one. Okay, I apologize to the entire country of Australia. Melbourne. I'm trying. I didn't practice. If I have better practice, I can do better accents. But I had no. Oh my God! But look, wait a minute, Australia. What's your problem? New Zealand is kicking your butt. Australia, what is your? How many multi-GP chapters are there in New Zealand? Australia, get it together. There's one in freaking Tasmania. But no. Wow. New Zealand has more chapters than all of Australia. Is that true? I think it is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wow. Embarrassing. Recommendation for twin blade props on a 4S quad. Billy Lake. I guess the question, Billy, is why do you want to run twin blade props? That's the question. In my experience, the big reason we used to run twin blades was that the motors didn't have enough torque to handle well on tri-blades, and the batteries lasted longer on bi-blades. But today, tri-blades are fantastic. They corner a lot better. You get more thrust, unless you're trying to go for like long-range stuff. But if you're on long range, then I don't think you should be on 5-inch. You should be up doing 6 or 7-inch and really trying to do long range. So, Billy, I would need to know more about your application before I recommend twin blade props for 4S. Good. Let's see here. New Zealand is Australia. Ooh, Kim Ratcliffe. Them's fighting words. Is New Zealand? New Zealand is. That's not right, is it? Is New Zealand a part of Australia? New Zealand is not a part of the continent of Australia. They're both part of the Oceania sub-region. No, it's New Zealand. Australia's lost. Was New Zealand? Who does New Zealand? New Zealand is its own like country, isn't it? Is it? We're all going to learn something. New Zealand. It's a country. Yeah, it's a country. It's its own country. Okay, thank you. Jerking me around. I knew it. No, I knew it was. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure, but I was pretty sure. Okay, moving on. Okay. Okay, heading over. How do PIDs affect feel? Asks Johnny Ice, given $2.99 in the super chat. Most missed the super chat. It's been a while since one came in. How do PIDs affect feel? In general, Johnny Ice, in general, higher P gains make the quad feel more responsive and sharper on the sticks. Higher I gain make the quad feel stiffer, is the way I like to put it. It's like, you ever have a stiff back and you kind of don't want to turn too quickly? That's what a quad with high I gain feels like. And the thing is, a quad with high I gain can track very well and feel almost like robotic. But if you want it to be loose and limber and change direction quickly, that's as limber as I get, guys. Then, no, I'm not going to do that, Kyle. If you want it to be loose and limber, then, sorry guys, hold on. Oh my goodness, Adolf Hitler, I see. Hide user on this channel. Thanks, Adolf. You're gone. Thank you, Steve, for pointing that out. I saw those messages. Those messages were being auto-moderated when he was posting the URL, but then when he stopped posting the URL, his messages started coming through and I didn't catch what he was saying. No, that guy has no place on this stream. He's out of here. So getting back to what was I saying? How do PIDs affect feel? The I gain, if you want the quad to be very sort of limber and loose and change direction quickly, you may want a low I gain. And then D, I don't think D, well, D doesn't primarily affect feel, but having a high D gain can make the quad feel like less responsive, kind of mushy and slow to respond to stick movements. But in general, I think today in Betaflight, you should not use the PIDs to tune for feel primarily. You should use the feed forward value to tune for feel. A lower feed forward will give a more sort of kind of a mushy smoothness. Higher feed forward gives a sharp twitchiness. And tune the PIDs for the quad's actual aerodynamic handling. Tune the PIDs to get rid of things like bounce back on flips and rolls and prop wash oscillation, but then use the rates and the feed forward to affect the actual stick feel. That's what I would do. Okay. What do I know about the Marmot frame? I know I finally got my Marmot frame, and I'm going to be reviewing it probably this week. So look forward to that. In the Discord, Tumbleweed30 asks, I have 2 B-brains and a Tiny Hawk about 20 feet. Amber yells RSSI low and RSSI critical, but the Tiny Hawk's at a minimum of 74 RSSI. You know, the RSSI values that Amber is yelling about, Tumbleweed, are from the telemetry sensors, and they should match what you're seeing in the Tiny Hawk. If the Tiny Hawk is showing 74 RSSI, then I would kind of wonder if the Tiny Hawk is got its RSSI calibrated correctly or set up correctly. But the Tiny Hawk comes from the factory set. I guess it depends what receiver you're using. The bottom line is, do you fail safe, Tumbleweed? If you're seeing low RSSI and you're not fail-safing, then maybe something's wrong. But if you are fail-safing, then something is broke. The thing I always go back to with receiver issues is, does it happen only on one quad or does it happen on a bunch of quads? If it happens only on one quad, then that is definitely something to do with the receiver or antenna on that quad, and that helps you narrow it down. Yeah, Kyle K, the T16, it's not dead to me. I was joking. But if it doesn't have Hall effect sensors, I'm disappointed. The T16, yeah. Let's see. When I ordered my Nirvana, how long did it take to get to me? Terminal LCPL. I got my Nirvana direct from Underground FPV as a review unit, and it took a long time between the time they thought they were going to send me one and the time they actually did. So my experience was not that different than yours. Have I played with the PID toolbox yet? It's FPV. What's the PID toolbox? I know what that is, Underground FPV. It is the the PID toolbox lets you play with, how is there an online version of it though? I can't find it. Is there, you post a link, it's FPV, I'll show it on the stream. Yeah. Tumbleweed says it happens on both of the B brains, so it's not just one, it's both of them. And then I would want to know if you're actually hitting fail safes, because that would indicate whether it was really low RSSI or whether it was just a readout problem. I have had low RSSI, low range on all of my B brains. It's one of the things I like the least about them. I like a lot about the newbie drone and the B brains, but the RSSI, I wish it had better receiver on it. Camilo Henao asks, Betaflight versus KISS versus Flight 1. I'm sorry, no, he asks, Betaflight versus KISS versus Flight 1? Because there's exclamation points there. Hey, fly what you like. They are all amazing in their own way. Flight 1 is extremely loved by racers, and even say that it gives them faster lap times, although I will note that Evan Turner was flying Betaflight when he beat Alex Vanover at the Multi-GP Nationals, so hey. But that's not really fair, because Evan Turner he could fly anything and win. So fly what you like, fly the hardware that you find appealing. KISS is great firmware, but kind of expensive. Flight 1 only runs on the Revolt boards and a few other boards. Betaflight runs a wide variety of hardware, is very functional, but some people would say it's not the most cutting edge in terms of flight performance. Other people would disagree. There's no right answer there. Just do what you're going to do. My iTerm Relax turns off every time I reboot the flight controller. NADS FPV. If you have any configuration settings that are not sticking between reboots, then probably my first guess is that the firmware that's on your flight controller is not compatible with the configurator that you're using. So, for example, by the way, I did just say configurator. That's not how you pronounce that word, but that's how I said it. So, for example, if you're using Betaflight 4.0, you need to be using the nightly build of the configurator, or you may end up with incompatibilities. If you're using a really old version of Betaflight, which if you have like Betaflight 3.2 on the flight controller and you try to turn iTerm Relax on, well, that's not going to work because 3.2 didn't have iTerm Relax. So I would make sure that, UAV Tech, thank you, sir. Mark Spatz, UAV Tech, points out that if you have an F3 board, iTerm Relax turns off because iTerm Relax has been taken out of the F3s because there's not enough flash space on it. Mark Spatz is building what he calls performance builds of Betaflight for the F3 boards, leaving in some of those performance-based functions and taking out some other things. There you go. What about implementing something like a Flight 1 configurator into Betaflight? Don't I know the devs? No, I mean, I know I talk to some of them, but they don't do what I tell them in terms of development. I actually have asked more than once for the Betaflight configurator to incorporate wizards similar to what Flight 1 does. And the problem is that Betaflight is an open source project. So they work on whatever interests them the most. They don't get paid for doing it. So it's not like we have any right to demand that they work on any particular thing. And the thing is that the devs don't feel like adding wizards and stuff to the configurator is where they want to spend their time. Because like me and like many of us, they're all nerds. They don't need wizards. They just fix it. It's the normal people who need the wizards. And because the Betaflight is not a commercial product, they have no particular incentive to make their product accessible to beginners. So when they say, hey, will you make a wizard that auto sets up the motor order? No, just fix it. That's not what they want to be working on right this minute. So there you go. Oh, wait a minute. No, I haven't seen this. What is this? This is new. I haven't seen this. The PID Toolbox is a MATLAB-based GUI for analyzing Betaflight black box logs for multi-rotors. Wow. Interesting. Spectral analysis, yeah. Wow, well that's pretty cool. No, I haven't played with that yet. Here, I'll post the link here in the chat for anybody who wants to play with it. If you're into black box and tuning, there's a link there. You can play with PID Toolbox. This is nice because it's clearly based on Plasma-Tree. Plasma-Tree has always been a little unwieldy to use. So if this is creating a more user-friendly interface to Plasma-Tree, I would certainly see that as a nice advantage. Yeah, interesting. Oh, that's a shame. You got to use Blackbox Log Viewer. I wish it would. That's a shame. Oh no, that's fine. It don't use black. This is the one that's bad. Like us decode. I don't like that one. Okay. Debugman68 and Billy Presley give $5. Thank you so much, you guys. No question, just $5. Thank you. Yeah, UAV Tech. Good point. If you want wizards in the Betaflight configurator, find somebody who knows how to do it and convince them to do it. It's an open source project. Anyone can contribute. And if you said to a Betaflight dev, please make me a wizard, I will pay you. I mean, they're all, in some sense, they're all professional coders too. And I'm sure that someone would take your money and do it for you. But nobody does. So that's why it's not there. Frank Barajas, why doesn't Betaflight have a Patreon page? Betaflight does have a PayPal you can contribute to. I'm not actually sure where that money goes, though. The thing is, it's an open source project, so people are constantly coming and going with their contributions, and whoever actually has the password to the checking account, I have no freaking idea. Kyle K. Oh, they do have a Patreon. Well, humdinger. Patreon.com/Betaflight. 9 patrons, $38 a month. But again, who does that money go to if you sign up for there? I mean, for all we know, it goes to Boris B. After all this time, he has the checking account numbers, and it goes to him. And I can't remember the last time he made a commit. There's so many other people who have picked up this project and are working on it far more actively, if he's even part of it. So I'd be a little careful about. I mean, if you're going to donate to the project, I would want to. I'll say this. Somebody's going to be mad at me and say, hey, you told people not to donate to Betaflight. The thing is, I would want to know where the money went before I decided that I wanted to donate. I would want to know that it was going to the devs who were actually working on the project and not on somebody who was a part of the project years ago and kind of fell off. Steve Maslick says money goes to Blackmon. Well, Steve, if you vouch for him, then I am fine with it too. What's a couple of quick things to change in BLHeli 32 to improve performance? So I have my BLHeli 32 100% explained video playlist, which is like an hour and a half of video going through all of the options in BLHeli. But the short version is I set motor PWM frequency to 48 kilohertz and I set timing to auto. If you are a racer who cares more about power than speed, then set timing to 23 degrees. But otherwise, set it to auto for smoothness. Those are two things you can change. Lolan, any advice for noise in the FPV feed from my 900 megahertz receiver? Lolan, move the antennas and the power wires of the VTX and the 900 megahertz receiver as far away from each other as they can. Which 22XX motors work on 8S? Where are you getting an 8S battery anyway? You doing 4S in series? Any 22XX motor will work on 8S. You just got to get the right KV. The motor voltage ratings are largely related to the RPM that the motor is rated for. If you're willing to run the motor at higher RPM, you could probably run. You could probably run a 2100 kV on 8S. It would just get really high RPMs. I haven't done the math. You don't want the prop tip to exceed the sound barrier. So I would just be looking for, take a 1600 kV motor, run it on 8S, have a good day. That's what I would do. Let's see here. Yeah, TBS Endurance 1450. I would run that on 8S. Sure, 1450 is, it depends on your prop size also. But assuming we're talking a 5-inch or maybe a 6-inch, probably. Let's see here. Let's see. How do you figure out the size of your quad? Asks Simon Saucy. There's two ways to measure the size of a frame. One of them is the wheelbase, which is the motor-to-motor diagonal distance. So, for example, this is, I think it's a 75 millimeter frame. That's actually not fair because this isn't actually a square. See, the motors are wider in front than in the rear. On a frame like this, it's a little bit different. But for square frames, you measure the wheelbase or you measure the prop size. So you'd say that's a 5-inch prop or a 6-inch prop. Somebody said, good question, Mark. Where's Mark's good question? What happens if the prop tip... Oh, good question, Mark. Mark McAuliffe wants to know, what happens if the prop tip reaches the sound barrier? Can it happen? Yep, it can happen. What happens when something breaks the sound barrier? Shit goes crazy, right? I apologize to all the parents who I promised there wouldn't be swearing. Hopefully that's not too bad for you kids. When stuff crosses the sound barrier, you get all kinds of crazy... I don't know what they're called. The air gets all turbulent. You get turbulence. Pardon me. It gets turbulence and essentially just becomes really violent. So you definitely want to keep your RPM low enough that your prop tip stays below the sound barrier. That's the reason why, among other things, that's the reason why you can't just take, a 2800 kV motor and run it on 10S and just say, have a good day. Because at some point, the prop tip crosses the sound barrier and stuff gets really violent really fast and tears itself apart. At the best case scenario is that you hear an awful, awful noise and you don't go any faster. And the worst case scenario is stuff falls apart. So when you see people talking about the max... But you can do the calculation. I'm not gonna do the calculation here because I'm terrible at math, especially when doing it in front of people. But if you think about it, it's you're moving one circle, per second or whatever, so many RPMs. You calculate the circumference of the prop circle, and then you calculate how fast the prop tip is moving in meters per second, and it tells you if you're breaking the sound barrier. You can't do it. What's my opinion of capacitors on ESCs, the maximum amount, etc.? All day air. If I'm using individual ESCs, I find that about a 330 microfarad capacitor on each of the 4 ESCs does an amazing job cleaning up video. If I'm using a 4-in-1 ESC, between a 1000 and 2000 microfarad, 2000 is a little bit big. It's kind of humongous, but between 1000 and 2000 microfarad on the XT60 pads or even on the plug does an okay job. If you have individual ESCs, putting the capacitors on the ESCs themselves does a much better job cleaning up the noise because it puts the capacitor closer to the source of the noise. Let's see. Landon Kramer gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Landon. And asks, I'm having a problem with my QX7. It detects USB input when I power it on. I can still fly if I select joystick mode, but I can't use it in Sims or update it. I'm a little confused by your question, Landon, because if you select joystick mode... So here's what I would say, Landon. Long press the menu key, and that'll bring you to the radio setup menu, and then scroll down to where it says USB mode, and change that to ask. And then every time you plug in USB, it'll ask whether you want to be in joystick mode or mass storage mode. And then when you select joystick, it should be available in simulators and stuff. That definitely should work. What's the most likely cause for ESCs to go up in smoke if they previously worked fine? Asks It's FPV in the Discord. Well, if they're just crap ESCs, like the Racer Star ESCs that come on the Eachine Wizard X220, which I will hate till the day I die. If they're just crap ESCs, sometimes you plug in and they pop for no reason. Usually, though, it's physical damage that you didn't see. So you had a prop strike or you crashed and you hit a rock. You didn't notice that the ESC was damaged, and the next time you plug in or in the middle of a flight, it goes down. So the most likely cause is physical damage that you just weren't aware of. Mike Chin, you're better than that, man. But you're better than that. Come on. Let's see here. Fernando Urrutia, did you see my question about a follow-up on the Let's Build a Quad videos? We need a fine-tuning follow-up series. My drone is like a wild stallion. Fernando, which quad are you asking about? Is it the budget build? The budget build, I flew on default PIDs, and it was amazing, and so I didn't do a tuning series about it because it flies great on the defaults. If you're talking about my perfect freestyle build, I talked a little bit earlier about how I tuned that one, and the short version is that one's also flying on defaults, but I did change the filters to get better prop wash handling. Let's see here. SRXL for Spectrum, asks Dr. Turd Ferguson FPV. Can you do a video on setting up SRXL on Spectrum? Turd Ferguson, here's what I always refer people to when I need to set up SRXL. And it is right here. It's the Betaflight wiki page right here. I'll paste that in the chat. But the short version is that you connect the signal wire to a TX pin on the flight controller, not an RX pin. If you connect it to an RX pin, you will get Spectrum but no telemetry. Then you need to select the Spectrum ByDeer SRXL protocol, and you may need to also set serial RX duplex equals on. That's it. Basically, it's not actually that complicated. So just follow the steps right here at Turd Ferguson and you will be fine. Thank you, Razor 3379, pointing out that Drib also has a video on setting up Spectrum SRXL, so he should get that question. Let's see here. What do you think about the Hyperlight 2205.7 motors? Hyperlight motors, Luis Valenzuela. Hyperlight motors are amazing motors. I mean, the history of their use in racing speaks for itself. They're great motors at a good price. To me, a 2205.7, you mean 2207.5, don't you? I was going to say, I don't think they make a 2205. The 2207.5, I mean, I like 2207s. I'm curious about 2208s. I've heard good things from Kebab about 2208s. I'm curious to try them. So, I mean, I think that, yeah, I think that we're probably moving a good direction with those. Everything good about a 2207, but just a little more stator height, should be good, right? I would just want to be careful about the amp draw. As that stator gets bigger and as the stator volume gets larger, you generally tend to get more amp draw. If all you did was raise the stator another 0.5 millimeter, you're going to get more power, but it's also going to pull more amps, and you're definitely going to want to be careful about that. Django Reed, I built a quad because of you, Mr. Bardwell. Just wanted you to know that. Django, thank you. That's really good to hear. Thanks for letting me know. Let's see here. Diego Pedro, thank you. The equation for tip speed is 511300 over prop diameter in inches. Interesting. Goncalo Rijo gives 10 euros and asks, do you think rapid fire mode 1 will ever be compatible with all cameras? I have 5 quads. I can only go with legacy mode. Really unhappy with the module. I'm really curious what cameras you've got that are causing you so much problems, but the thing is, I mean, rapid fire's position is that you should be mad at the camera manufacturers for not obeying the spec and not building their cameras correctly. That doesn't feel good when you bought the module and you can't actually get the performance out of it that everybody else is getting. The good news is that the rapid fire module, even in legacy mode, is at least 3 dB more sensitive than other receivers. At least that's what Immersion RC claims. And Immersion RC has actually hinted that they've got another little update to rapid fire that's going to improve the sensitivity even further. So it's still an exceptionally good plane diversity module. But no, I mean, Goncalo, unless rapid fire's response to the non-compatible cameras was to give you rapid fire mode 2 and legacy mode. And other than that, the manufacturers need to modify the cameras to obey the specification. That would be rapid fire's position. So, Trigger FPV wants to know my thoughts on his call out to Chad Capper. Trigger FPV called out Chad Capper to post a flight video that was better than his. I don't know. Capper's never been known for his flying. I mean, he can fly, but he's never been known for it. So I'm always up for a good throwdown. Can I do a video about Stray Phoenix wants to know about my likes and dislikes of KISS. What I like about KISS, KISS, the culture around KISS is fantastic. KISS has always been very positive and contributes to FPV as opposed to other entities whose attitude seems to be we're awesome and screw everybody else and we're not giving anything back. So the list of technologies that KISS helped develop and gave to open source FPV is too long for me to even remember, but things like D-Shot come to mind. KISS helped, the KISS developers helped with the Betaflight developers to work on D-Shot's development. Turtle mode, I mean, that was all done by KISS and Betaflight working together, and I love that aspect of it. Despite the fact that KISS is closed source, which is not my favorite, I think if you're going to go closed source, the way that KISS has done it is a fantastic way to do it. What I don't like about KISS, number one, the gear is really expensive. Now, some of that is because I believe that they actually manufacture in Germany. Like they don't, I've heard that. I'm not 100% sure if that's true. I think it's true though. And so that raises their price because they're not sending stuff out to China. But for the average person, that's nice, but it's hard to buy KISS gear because it's so much more expensive. The other thing about KISS is that KISS has never put the OSD in the flight controller. The OSD is always a separate MW OSD with a PDB, like the Mr. Steel PDB. And the minute Betaflight put the OSD in the flight controller and I didn't have to deal with that stupid MW OSD configurator anymore, I was just like, never going back, never going back. And so, there you go. Let's see here. Tyro 99. Yep. Asking about the T16. I will be reviewing Piranha 32. I will be reviewing the T16. Yep. Low asks, I just bumped a tree and my video went black, just black. No OSD or font from Betaflight. Tried a different VTX and replaced the wiring, still black. Well, here's the thing. If you get black video and you see the OSD, then it's your camera. It's the camera to the flight controller. If you get black video with no OSD, then the problem is between the flight controller and the VTX. And if you get static, then the problem is with the VTX. That's the short version. So your problem is somewhere between the flight controller and the VTX. And if you can't find a problem in the wiring, then it might be in the flight controller. Simon Saucy, I plopped my drone in the water. It was dead the next day. Works fine. Should I waterproof it? Well, I mean, it's a little too late now, but sure, go for it. When is the Marmot video coming? Hopefully this week. I have a Marmot, and I want to review the frame, but I'm probably not going to have time to do a full build. So, Glenn Corkery, thank you for $5. They're $5 Australian dollars, so far as I can tell. So that's okay. I promise not to try to pronounce your name with an Australian accent like I did earlier. Thoughts about the Free Sky Access Protocol? I actually covered that earlier in the live stream and on the previous live stream. So I'm gonna pass on that question. I appreciate your donation though. I would like to learn how to tune PIDs, asks Camilo Hinao, but all videos are either too old or too technical. Any suggestions? The reason I haven't made a PID tuning video lately is because PID tuning is not, it used to be the very first thing you did after you built a quad is take it out and start PID tuning it. At least if you wanted it to fly decent. And the reality is today that the default PIDs fly really, really well on almost all like 5-inch, 6-inch quads, and pretty good on other quads too. So my thing is, I want to start PID tuning with the question, what's wrong with the way your quad is flying now? And then we'll talk about how to solve it. Whereas 2 years ago, I would have said, here's the first thing you do to start PID tuning after you build your quad. Don't waste time PID tuning if you're okay with how your quad is flying. That's what I would say. Yeah, Chris Quad, that's a really good point. I should shout out to Mr. Stinger Swarm though. Tuning with Stingy. This, if I had to pick, oh my God, look at him before the beard, everybody. Wow. This is even this. I mean, this is not full on wild man stingy beard, but yeah, the beard works for him. Anyway, this video is a great video, 20-minute video on tuning PIDs. Can kind of get you started. That's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. 135,000 views. Screw you, Stingy. That is amazing. That's great. So yeah, definitely check that out if you want to kind of get a rough look on tuning. But honestly, the default PIDs fly great on just so many quads. So. Mike Chin, any idea about rumors that FrSky access radios may not bind third-party RX? Mike, that's the first I've heard of it, but honestly, I would not put it past FrSky to pull something like that. FrSky may not like third-party people, third-party companies making receivers that bind with their devices, and they may find a way to. This access radios may find a way to bind it out. That would make sense. I don't know. Trigger FPV wants to know, Underground FPV and Nirvana still waiting. What are your thoughts on the issues with them and such slow shipping and little to no customer response? That's really tough, Trigger FPV. I've heard so many stories about poor customer service from Underground FPV that there's just, I mean, sometimes it's hard to know, whether it's just an isolated incident or a pattern, but it's pretty clear that Underground FPV, there's just too many people out there having the same experience. So it really seems like Underground FPV is not really delivering on customer service like we would hope that they would. Many people want the Nirvana enough that they're willing to wait. And a lot of people are disgusted and just like say, forget it. And it's not just slow shipping. Like I imagine if they have you gave them your money, I'm sure they want to bring you your product. And I'm sure that there's manufacturing issues. I mean, that would be my guess, that there's manufacturing issues that are preventing them from delivering it. I have no idea what those might be. The question is just if you love the radio enough that you want to wait and you want to get into that ecosystem. I mean, one of the biggest reasons why you see me still flying the Tyrannus is that it's just such a popular radio that it's sort of the de facto radio for so many people. So, I mean, by buying a radio like the QX7 or the X9D, you certainly have the benefit of, you can just get it just about anywhere, and there's always resources to help you with it. Let's see. So but the real question you're asking is what should you do? And I can't tell you the answer to that. If you're disgusted with waiting and you're tired of not having your emails answered, then cancel your order and get something else, and it's a shame. It's a nice radio. It shows a lot of promise. The ergonomics aren't perfect, but it's one of the best built, one of the nicest to hold in terms of just feeling solid and well built. I mean, I like a lot about that radio. So I definitely understand why you might want one. Let's see here. I'm curious, Goncalo has posted a link to his problems he's having with his rapid fire. Somewhere out there, Tony Cake feels uncomfortable and doesn't know why. Let's see the problem you're having with your rapid fire, Goncalo. I hope I'm saying your name right. Let's see. What does it look like? Well, that to me, if you put it, you're saying if you put it in legacy mode, that goes away, right? To me, that looks like video noise. That doesn't look like a rapid fire issue. That looks like video noise. Excess electrical noise. I mean, I would be adding capacitors and stuff to try to fix that. That doesn't look like what happens when rapid fire glitches out. I think that's an issue with the quad, to be honest with you. If you look at my Mobula 7 review, you can see an example of what happens. Let me see if I can find it. It was when I was flying outdoors. Yeah. There it is. I can see it even in the previews. This is what happens when your Mobula glitch, or when your rapid fire glitches out, and you need to switch to legacy mode. Hang on, here it comes. That's it right there. That's it. Where it kind of loses sync and rolls horizontally. That's the sign that you're see that? Thankfully, I managed not to crash. That's the sign that your rapid fire mode 1 is not working and you need to switch to legacy mode. So what you're showing me, Goncalo, in your video, to me looks like video noise, looks like electrical noise problem with your quadcopter, I'm sorry to say, not your rapid fire module. And I can only guess that switching to legacy mode is fixing it for you because it's kind of hiding the problem. But to me, that's not an issue with the rapid fire module. Yeah, Mike Chin points out, Goncalo, your OSD is disappearing. That's not rapid fire, can't do that. That's electrical noise in your quad. So some things that can help fix electrical noise. Let me try to be helpful instead of just telling you what your problem is. Some things that can fix video noise are move from VBAT to a regulated supply. So if you're running your VTX off VBAT, run it to like a 9-volt regulator or a 12-volt regulator. If you're running it off a regulator, maybe the regulator is really noisy. So then move it back to VBAT. Sometimes that works better. If you can run the VTX off of VBAT and the camera off of a 5-volt output from the VTX, if your VTX has a 5-volt output, sometimes that's cleanest. Move the ground wire for the VTX and the camera to the same location on the flight controller. All of these things can help clear up video noise, and of course there may be other issues with the builds. I mean, it's happening on 5 different builds, so it's hard to say that it's the quad, but what you showed me in that video at least doesn't look like a rapid fire issue. So just got to be honest about that. Let's see here. Gavin Nunes gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Gavin. And says, I've got a new Tyrannus X90 Plus. I updated to the latest firmware, but after binding to the Crossfire Nano, it keeps getting the out-of-memory crash. I think you're getting the out-of-memory crash when you're trying to run the Crossfire Lua script. The first thing I would do, Gavin, is if you're getting any problems at all with your SD card and you're using the stock SD card that came with the Tyrannus, throw that thing out. That stock SD card that comes with the Tyrannus is so much trouble. And just get a 16 gig, or you can get a smaller one, but these days it's kind of hard to buy a smaller one. Just get a small, cheap, good name brand SD card off of Amazon and try replacing that and see if it fixes your issue. I read an article. I can't actually find the article. I thought it was Oscar Leong who posted it, but I couldn't find it on his site. That actually said that the SD card that comes with the Tyrannus is actually not the size that it says it is. It's lying. It's only like, a few hundred meg, but it says it's a gig. And if you put too much data on it, it actually just deletes the data. And it looks like it's there, but yeah. So I definitely would replace the SD card, Gavin. That would be the next thing I would do. Mike Chin, I'm going to make you a moderator too. Don't make me regret it though, Mike. Mike Chin, super helpful. Mike Chin, do you work for TBS, Mike, or do you just you're just like a helpful guy around the internet who knows about TBS? I think Mike Chin works for TBS and is always super helpful about Crossfire and stuff. All Day Air wants to know Pro Shot versus D Shot. Gives $5 in the super chat. Also, thank you, All Day Air. I use D Shot because some ESCs don't support Pro Shot. Pro Shot has the advantage of being lower frequency. To tell you the truth, I haven't used Pro Shot very much, and I don't know a lot about it. So I use D Shot because that's what the firmware I use supports, and that's it. Let's see. Now I have to watch. I'm making too many people moderators just because, like, you know, I just like to make sure they have that blue text so everybody in chat knows they're important. I have to watch and make sure no one's abusing their powers. You run customer support for them. Nice. Nice. Is Orca really dead? Monnier? Is it Monnier or Monnier? I'll wait for your answer. Orca is not dead. I don't know why you're saying Orca is dead. Orca is... They always had a long way to go between CES and a finished product. As far as I know, they're working on that. I can tell you that there's another project that Orca is working on with Rotor Riot that I can't say more about. But if Orca were dead, they wouldn't be working on this project with Rotor Riot. So some people are, you know, waiting for plane tickets. Hey, let me cover this question because the question, where was it? It's gone. It's gone. It got hidden. See, somebody's modding too aggressively. The question was, hey, Joshua, when are you going to give fpvknowitall.com an update? Guys, I'm not sure why you think I haven't updated it. Because the Ultimate FPV shopping list is constantly being updated. I'm constantly updating this, like not every day, but like if you look for the best quadcopter parts, last updated March 24th. Oh, that's literally yesterday. This was last updated. So I know that it's not always obvious when I update them. March 10th for this page. I know it's not always obvious when I update the pages, but especially the shopping list, I'm constantly keeping my eye out for new stuff. Stuff that needs to be added, changed, deleted as it goes out of stock. The fact that the front page hasn't changed very much, I mean, most of the work that I put into the website is the shopping list. And that is just constantly being updated. Let's see, frames. Ooh, that was a while ago, March 9th. So yeah, I'm always updating it. That's the answer. Do I have any plans to build a split screen FPV stream machine? Split screen FPV streaming. I don't know about that, Mike. Just like with 2 video inputs? Yeah. Ariel, I don't know how I could do that. That's tough, Ariel. You know, maybe what I could do is... Yeah, I understand. You want to know what I changed. That's really tough. You know what I could do? So I actually run the site through a... Trello board. And maybe what I could do is I could send out updates like weekly or something based on what's in the Trello board. I don't know about that. Eight-way security cam DVR. Yeah, Mike, I had an 8-way DVR for my FPV project, but it was standard definition because the high definition DVRs are so expensive. And the problem is that the standard definition was kind of crap. Yeah, what's really what you want is like an 8-way high-def DVR, but they're pretty expensive. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I can see it, Mark. I found it. It was that... I see the message, Mark. Thank you. You approved it. I was looking for it to be actually still in gray, waiting for approval. So, Billy Presley, he gives $5. This is a really common question, Billy. I have the Lumineer TX5GS VTX. I have wired up audio to TX2 ground and 5V. I'm not getting any smart audio info in my OSD. The Lumineer, they did something really dumb on this one. The Lumineer TX5GS, they labeled it in a really confusing way. But the good news is I can totally fix your problem, Billy Presley. Oh, no, this isn't the one I thought it was. So, does this one have smart audio? It does have smart audio. Okay. Okay, nope. I'm sorry. It was the other luminaire one that's wired. It's weird. So, oh no, I'm right. I'm right. What, you don't wire it to the audio, Billy. You don't wire the audio wire. You wire the telemetry wire right here on the backside. So, Billy, that's the answer to your question. You need to connect the telemetry TX pad on the VTX to the UART TX pad, not the audio pad. That's the answer to your question, Billy. Boom! There we go. That's what we're gonna go out on a high note. We're gonna go out on a high note. See, I just solved. Yeah, Billy, that's why it's confusing, Billy, because you would think that the TX pad would go to an RX pad, but it doesn't. It goes to a TX pad on the flight controller, and it's super weird that they did it this way. So unlike almost every other time you work with a serial interface, when you work with this specific VTX, the TX on the VTX goes to the TX on the flight controller. And that's how you do it, Billy. Anyway. Alrighty. Is the Boars thing your website is built from a thing you pay for? The Trello board? No, Trello is free. Trello is a free service anyone can sign up for. Let's see here. Anyway. Alrighty. Oh, look, I'm not even... Hey, there we are. Hello. Yeah, Kyle, right. It's confusing that the VTX doesn't use the RX pad. It uses the TX pad. Maybe it's the same reason. Because it's half duplex, they're using the TX pad. I don't know the answer to that. Anyway. Shiam, yes. Shiam asks, JB, I was recently flying near a mobile tower. My R9 was giving RSI as low as 7, but my XM Plus was around 75 at the same distance. Could the tower have something to do with it? Shiam, I would expect a cell tower to reduce your link quality and your signal-to-noise ratio, but not your RSSI. However, it is definitely possible that a cell tower could interfere in some way, so I would just kind of like go, yeah, maybe. Because especially if you're using the wrong frequency for the country that you're in. So if you're using whatever 858 instead of 915, in the US you got to use 915 megahertz, in the EU you got to use 858 or whatever it is. And if you use the wrong one, cell towers will just destroy you. So yeah, even the thing is, a cell tower can even, that's right, Mike Chin points out, cell towers have a ton of different frequencies on them. A cell tower shouldn't be transmitting on 915 megahertz usually, but sometimes they will rent equipment to other tenants and let them put antennas on the tower, and one of those guys could be on 915. You just never know. So it's certainly possible the cell tower was interfering with you. Alrighty, guys. That's going to bring us to the end of the live stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a real pleasure sitting here, and I plan to make a regular thing of it. I think what I'm going to do for a little while, I don't know how long, I'm going to go on a trip, and I'm going to not be able to do it and break my streak. But for the foreseeable future, let's do a like a 1 p.m. live stream on Sunday for the Europeans. Screw those Europeans. They're not here right now with their wine, their cheese. And then we're going to do an 8 p.m. Monday live stream for the Americans with beer and barbecue and guns. And so I'll see you guys next Sunday if you're here, or Monday if you can't make the Sunday. Thank you guys. Thanks to all my patrons over in the Discord. If you missed it at the beginning of the stream, if you want to help support me in the work I'm doing, this is my full-time job. You guys all know that, I know. This is just for the people watching the DVR. But if you want to support me, you can join my Patreon. There's a link in the video description. You can use my affiliate links. It helps me out a lot when you click those affiliate links before you make any purchase. Not just the linked items, but any purchase. Sing along with me. It means a lot. It really helps me out. And, of course, the Super Chats. Thanks to everybody who gave in the Super Chat. That's going to do it for this live stream. I will see you tomorrow with my normally scheduled videos for the rest of the week. Have a good night, everybody. Happy flying.